Sam Kahn, theathletic.com. We're this on 365 Sports. Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoke. Sam, I gave you a little bit of a tease on this one. If in 1994, after the season ended, you went into a coma, or you just didn't know anything about college football for 30-plus years, and you woke up today, what would be a couple of, maybe even 8 things that would, like, bulging eyes, what is going on?
There's no Pac-10 or Pac-12 or whatever. It wasn't Pac-12 in 1994, but there's no Pac-10. That would be the first thing. There's no Southwest Conference. The Big Eight is merged. They're paying players now. Stanford and Cal and SMU are in the ACC. Oregon and Washington are in the Big Ten. I mean, we can go on and on. It is, when you put it that way and you put that time frame on it from 94, it really is radical how much things have changed. Not just the conference alignment, but the whole landscape, the fact that we can do NIL. I mean, 94 would have been 7 years removed from the death penalty at SMU. So if you were telling me that 7 years, I got in a coma in 94, 7 years after SMU got the death penalty, and now SMU has Eric Dickerson doing hype videos for them on YouTube, and they're backing up the Brinks truck to pay players, it would definitely be a eye opener.
Is there a team that was good back then that you would, like, if I said, hey, this team, and you'd be like, oh, I know they're going to be in contention, you'd be like, no, they suck out loud right now.
Gosh, I would think, well, I mean, SMU would be one that was, obviously they were really down in the dumps at that time, and now they're a relevant program, and they won the conference championship last year. They've had a few double-digit win seasons the last few years, so that would be an eye-opener. I think TCU would be an eye-opener, how good they've gotten. They got to a national championship game a couple years ago, and they weren't necessarily great at the end there, right before the Southwest Conference broke up and had to spend some time in the wilderness. I think those are, just from an in-state standpoint, those are the two that would be jump out to me. I would say Colorado was very not far removed from a national championship in 1994, and to think how far they have sunk to where right before Dion came, they were a 111 team, and they were practically irrelevant in the Pac-12. I think that would be a little bit of a shocker because you would think of them as a power back then, and now not so much.
Sam, I think one of the answers to that question, too, could be up until this year of, like, Texas and A&M not playing each other for a large portion of that time. And now they are going to this fall. And after what's happened this past week, you're like, how could this get any crazier and wilder and nastier? The whole Jim Schlossnagle situation happens. You know that area. You know the fandom. You know the rivalry. What did you think of how all of that unfolded after the national championship in Omaha?
I was really shocked. I didn't really think it would happen just because the magnitude of not just going from one school to the other in the rivalry, but to do it at the time that it was done, which is the day after you play for the national championship. I didn't really think anybody had the gall to do that. And so even though there were the rumors after the Pierce firing and, things were circulating and Schlossnagle had his answer on Monday night during the press conference, even then I still wasn't convinced that it was going to happen. I thought to myself, well, he'll get an extension. There will be some push, to get the ballpark stuff going that they've already approved the plan for, and whatever his assistants need raises or what have you, and they'll get all that done, and it'll just be a smoke screen, and it won't amount to anything. And then when we got to Tuesday afternoon, and then it was actually happening, I was like, oh, buddy, like, this is wild. I just did not think, even knowing his relationship with Chris Del Conte, I still did not think it would happen, because I don't think in my lifetime I haven't seen that happen. Certainly not in a major sport that somebody goes from Texas to Texas A&M or vice versa as the head coach, and after having such a successful season at their previous school. It was a shocker to me, and I think the after effects of that and that rivalry, I think, are going to linger until November 30th when they actually get to play on the football field.
Sam, do you think that Jim Schlossnagle will suffer any in recruiting in this, or do you think that in that world he's pretty insulated and what he said or did to A&M won't matter to most?
It's hard to say, because I think there is a dynamic in baseball that is different from football and other sports. I think that fraternity is a lot closer. And so that move definitely opened eyes. But I'd be lying if I said I understood how the recruiting stuff works in baseball as much as in football, because you've got the draft and guys can get drafted straight from high school and all that. So I would say that overall, I don't think it's going to have a long-term impact, because when you talk about recruiting and you talk about young men who are teenagers, their attention spans are fairly short. Certainly, you're going to have some people probably negatively recruit against Schloss using some of this. But I think at the end of the day, kids are looking out and their parents are looking out for themselves and their best opportunity. And if they feel that Texas is that and that Schloss is best equipped to help them reach that, then they'll go there. And I do think right now it's such a big storyline and we consume it, all the time, every day. When football season gets here, I think it'll become a little bit of a distant memory just because the attention will shift to that. But yeah, I think in any situation like this, there are going to be some people who look at it and say, you know what, I don't like the way he handled that. And it may give them second thoughts about whether or not they want to go play for him.
Let me ask you this, and I think you could go with any of these as far as of the schools moving into a new conference. The ones that it appears to me, and you guys help me if I've missed somebody, Texas into the SEC, Utah into the Big 12, and also Oregon into the Big 10. Which of those three, Sam, is most likely to win a conference title?
I think Utah in the Big 12. I just think the way that Kyle Whittingham has built that roster and they get Cam Rising back healthy, and we've all seen the odds. I saw you guys read off the odds just a little bit ago. Utah is the favorite, I think, in the Big 12, or if they're not 1A, they're certainly 1B behind Kansas State. I think they're the most likely. That said, I think all three teams you mentioned have a legitimate shot. I think Oregon's going to be really good. I think Dan Lanning has done a tremendous job recruiting, and getting Dylan Gabriel in there is huge. And then you look at Texas, I do have a little bit of a question as to how good they're going to be on the defensive line interior and how important that is in the SEC. But everything else is in place, and the roster is SEC ready. I mean, we saw them play against Alabama last year, and the way they beat them up essentially at the line of scrimmage tells me that this team is on the right track. But that conference, I think, is so much top heavier that I think it's harder to break through there. But I think all three have a shot. But if you made me pick one of those three, I think Utah has the best.
Sam, what do you think about A&M's potential as a sleeper?
I like it. I really do. For as much as they've taken it on the chin from a public perception standpoint, this is still a really talented roster. Yeah, they lost guys in the portal, and they lost Walter Nolan and Evan Stewart, but you look up and down the roster, they still have legit guys, and they brought some good guys in the portal. Nick Scouton, the defensive edge rusher from Purdue, was a big addition. DJ Hicks, the 5-star, is back. They've got Shamar Turner is back. Shamar Stewart is back. So they still got a really salty defensive line. The fact that they kept Connor Wegman is huge. They still have a ton of skill talent. They've got to get the offensive line figured out. But when I look at the roster and the depth, and then I see the behind-the-scenes impact from Elko and things that are going on in the program that were not going on last year, things like keeping guys accountable, making guys, disciplined, making sure we're not missing meetings or being late to workouts and things like that. All those little things I think are going to add up that this is a team that if things break right and you're able to win that Notre Dame game and get in a roll, maybe this is a sleeper team that could get a playoff berth. I do think they have that kind of top-end talent to make that kind of case.
Sam, are you buying there's all these EA Sports lists. It's brilliant marketing. It's brilliant promotion for the video game, and people have been making lists about college football on a daily basis for like years now at this point. It's a whole thing. So smart for them to go that route, and it's certainly generated a lot of discussion. I think the inclusion of Colorado in like every list is a bit overkill, but perhaps they're going to be like one of the most surprising teams in the country. Are you buying into the Colorado's going to be better storyline, or do you, like a lot of other people, just have legitimate questions that prevent you from going all in on them right now?
I think they are going to be better than they were a year ago. I do believe that. I thought they did a solid job portaling offensive linemen, and that is hard to do, and I think it still remains to be seen how that comes together, because I don't think it's as easy as just plugging in a talented offensive lineman here and there and then just make the chemistry work. Like, it's time for that to happen. So I want to see how that happens. But I will say, when you talk to people in scouting and in personnel, there's a lot of compliments about how they evaluated and the guys they got in the portal. So I think they have done a good job with the roster. But I think there's questions. It's, can you protect Shador? That's the biggest bugaboo they had last year. Can they finish games? That was a little bit of a bugaboo. So they're going to have to answer those questions. But I do think this is a better team than it was a year ago, and I do think they're going to be interesting. I think they're going to be competitive. I would not be shocked to see them get to a bowl game, be a 6-win team, maybe even a 7-win team. But I don't expect them to be somebody that we're talking about in November contending for a conference title berth. I think they're a better team. I certainly don't see them as in these EA Sports rankings, a top 25 team. I certainly don't see that. But I do think they're a better team. And I do think, even for all the hype and the buzz and all the stuff we talk about Dion, quietly, I think they have done a good job of putting that roster together.
Sam, one of the EA rankings that came out was toughest places to play, and I've asked everybody we had on this week, and nobody's been able to give me a satisfactory answer to my liking. I know that it gets loud in Williams-Brice Stadium. I get that. But how is that a home field advantage for a team that never wins there?
Some people would say the same thing about Kyle Field, right?
Yeah,
Because, Kyle Field is number one, and it is, I would argue, it may be the best atmosphere in college football. But look at A&M's home record ever since they joined the SEC. It's not very good. Heck, it wasn't even really that great even in the Big 12 against good teams. They lost to App State 2 years ago. They went 4-3 at home that season. A lot of it is the quality of the team. I think it's, when you say toughest place to play, I guess the question is are you saying it's hard to win there, or is it just a difficult atmosphere independent of the team quality? Because if we're saying the latter, then I think, Kyle Field deserves to be up there. Williams-Brice maybe deserves to be up there. But the quality of the team has to matter at some point. Like, Bryant-Denny Stadium is listed second on this. I don't think Bryant-Denny Stadium is the second hardest place to play. I think Alabama's just been that good for that long.
Yeah.
For my money, LSU is probably the hardest place to play, just because that's just, if you've been to Tiger Stadium on a Saturday night, buddy, it's just a different deal, and those people are lubricated, all day long, and ready to give you hell for 3.5 hours. But I think sometimes we can conflate how good the team is with the atmosphere, when I think that there is sometimes a direct relationship to that. But sometimes, like, Texas A&M can be bad and still have 100,000 people in the building. I think there's something to be said for that. So these lists are so subjective and they're hard to parse through. But I do think generally they got a lot of the good ones in here. The one that I was shocked that got left off was Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State,
Yep.
with how close the stadium is to the sidelines and the fans there with the paddle people and all that stuff, like that place can get really hairy. As you guys well know, have been some road games there. It can get a little sticky there. Carter Finley at NC State is like that a little bit. There's some ones on here that got left off that surprised me, but I thought overall they did a pretty solid job.
Yeah, Oklahoma State was one that we mentioned too. We actually got a paddle, one of the real deal paddles, as a gift from a listener today, which is very, very cool. So before we let you go, I guess what would be your number one from the Sam Conn Stadium experience rankings, and where's the place that you haven't been that you most want to go at this point in your career?
Tiger Stadium is number one for me. Yeah, of all the places I've been, that one is just the fans screaming and the pregame, they're rocking the bus. They may throw beer on you if you're an opponent. Listening to that, listening to them sing neck, listening to them sing in unison pregame and in the fourth quarter, it's nuts. It is just a different atmosphere. The one on this list, I'll give you two on this list that I haven't been that I'd really like to go to. I'd really like to go to Ohio State. I haven't been there. That would be a cool experience. And I'd really like to go to Austin. I've heard so much about Austin Stadium in Oregon, and it's not as big of a stadium, but it seems like a different vibe. That is one that I would love to go just because I've seen so many games on TV that look really electric there. I think it would be really cool to be.
Sam, have a great weekend. Big 12 Media Days around the corner, and then, of course, before we know it, practices, games. Thank you very much for your time. I want to let you know we've got a cookie cake on our set. We are at 50,000 plus subscribers, and as you know, we didn't start this but 4 years ago. And guests like you and others that work at theathletic.com have been a part of the content that we bring. We appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope to have you on again soon.
Yeah, appreciate it as always having me. Y'all take care.
Sam Kahn with us, 365 Sports, on this Friday afternoon.